kind of exciting. That's why people do it. They enjoy it, even though it's kind of like a dystopia. But there's some people have a fascination with dystopias, and but I think above all, it's one way where one can have the impression that they're speaking as Orthodox Christians, they're committed to Orthodox Christianity, and they don't have to deal with themselves. So, the problem, it's out there, it's bad, I condemn it, and I am really a great Orthodox Christian because I condemn it. Because I condemn everything that's evil, and I see evil all around. So I'm just the best Orthodox Christian of all. Whereas, of course, what an Orthodox Christian does is he looks inside his soul, he looks at his thoughts, he looks at his reactions, he looks at how he's disappointed Christ, how he's failed to walk the extra mile, and the Christian feels contrition. And that contrition grows, and he weeps, he goes to confession, he asks for Christ's help, he asks for absolution from his spiritual father, and he longs to go to communion, and he prays that that communion will be unto life everlasting, and that through that communion he'll be a little bit stronger to go back into the world and not do the same sin that he did before, or at least to do it a little less, and slowly to become Christ-like. That's the Christian life. Simply spending time speaking about, the end of the world, or, the bishops falling from grace, or something like that. It's basically spiritual idle talk is what it is. But it's even a little bit worse than spiritual idle talk. I think it would be better to have endless conversations about the new iPhone and whether you like which application is your favorite application, than to speak about the bishops, about those in the Orthodox Church, and condemn them, and condemning people that you don't really know, but that have a heavy, heavy burden on their shoulders, having to try to speak the word of Christ truthfully, having to deal with situations where there's not a clear solution, and trying to figure out what's the best solution according to the gospel. How, by any means, can the most be possibly saved? And there are times that requires strictness. There's times that requires a great deal of flexibility. And that, basically that's the word economia, keeping the house in order. And that's the job that the bishop has. That's the job that the bishop will have to give an apology for, an account for, before the throne of God. Bishop, there's a reason the bishop's name is elevated so much in the services, and that's because, of course, he needs the prayers of the faithful in order to properly exercise his ministry. And the bishop, those in authority, they're all humans. They all struggle not only they try to be an image of Christ, but they have their own passions, their own weaknesses, their own shortcomings, their own need for confession, their own great need for Christ and his mercy and his grace if they're to do the work. And as human beings, bishops do sin, bishops do fall, bishops can make mistakes. Someone as great as Seraphim of Sarov said there was times, he said, that when he gave an answer which wasn't based on the grace of the Holy Spirit, that he made mistakes. And the mistakes can be large. Even the Mother of God, full of every grace, every divine virtue, perfect holiness, perfect impurity, more honorable than the cherubim, more glorious beyond compare than the seraphim, When she was at the temple with the Lord, she didn't know where the Lord was. So it's good to be generous, and it's good to be kind. If an Orthodox Christian has to at least be kind, be loving. We have, as Orthodox Christians, so many teachings about the importance of humility. I mean, the entire period of Great Lent is a training in humility. There's really no excuse for us to be, condemning other people, especially in written form. If anything, we're simply demonstrating that we really don't listen to anything that we hear in church. Well, basically, it's being open to the good, wherever it is, but discerning what parts of it that we can take, again, in accordance with the gospel of Christ. So, one example was Saint Gregory Palamas, who talked about, wisdom of the Greeks. In other words, Greek philosophy. He said there's something that's useful in this Greek philosophy. Of course, there's the logic of Aristotle, which is very perfect. There's some very beautiful imagery from Plato. The Socratic method is useful. But he said in taking it, he was obviously, in looking at philosophy, there was an openness. There was a willing to accept that these men who didn't know Christ, didn't have the gospel of Christ, that there was something of value to be found in their writings. But he said first you had to cut off the head, which was, of course, their kind of pagan views, which, he says could also have poison that could kill a person. Well, in the same way, we can make use, be open to culture, but do it in a discerning way. And ultimately, if we're going to take something, if we can use it in a constructive way for the building up of the church, for the building up of our own spiritual lives, it's valuable. But it's good not to take everything in just without reflection, without thought about how something could be helping or harming.